back for part 3, slip ring installation and reassembly. This is the CS144 rotor. It's been covered in this red paint. It is a varnish. It is used for insulating electrical components. I have a new heat gun, so we need more heat and solder that's at higher temperature. So I've used this heat gun to heat up these tabs. So what we have here, these tabs that look like they're clamping wire. They look like several strands when you look at it closely, but it is only one wire. On this other side, I heated it up and well, it loosened up this tab. So that's not something I wanted, but we're trying to focus the camera on it. You could kind of see the little tab has a hole, but yeah, these as you heated it up, no solder melts or anything, so I can't get it to melt any solder off of that. I was hoping it opened up like a clamp and I can clamp new wire in it, but it is what it is. We're gonna use it like it is there. So we're gonna put it back in there. We're gonna resolder it to that existing wire, and we're just gonna make sure it sits within its insulating rubber or whatever it has inside that hole. So we want to make sure it doesn't touch metal and it goes back in that little circular area so it doesn't touch the base of the rotor. So let's go ahead and do that. I wish I could clean it a little bit more, but we're just gonna solder it in place. I should hold it tight. All right, so the next step will be to add the actual slip ring. Okay, it's getting dark out here, but the garage where I would normally do this has been taken over by Girl Scout cookies. So we're gonna go ahead and push that down. We're gonna find a socket. All right, let's go find a socket. All right, I did manage to secure my little spot here in the garage. This is a little bit more sturdier. It's not gonna bounce around like the table outside. Okay, so let's look at the connection here that I soldered together, that little tab. The soldering is a little wider than I want, so I'm gonna heat it up and make sure it's skinnier. So before we put these rings on, I'm gonna test it against the metal. Make sure there's no continuity. That way I know it's not touching metal right there. All right. And then we'll test it against the other side to see that there is continuity. So we'll do all that before actually soldering the slip rings. All right, so let's go ahead and put it down. And we are gonna lower the slip ring down using a socket. Originally had the 21 in mind, and we'll do the open end. All right, that's it. It's coming down. All right, it's touching the wire ends here. All right, I think it reached its destination. So we're gonna take a closer look. All right, just a little bit more maybe, but I think that's just the ends that show gaps in the middle. It looks like it's down. That's pretty much it right there. Let's see if we can get a closer look of what we have here. All right. right, so eventually we're gonna solder this together and hopefully add some sort of epoxy under and on top of the wiring there. All right, this is where I'm at right now. I've got a soldering gun that's for high temperature. I have a solder that should be around 460 heat range for melting. Some paste, not acid, and I've cut this. It was a little longer, so I've cut each end a little shorter. I'm gonna bend these over. So before I do that, I'm gonna put a plastic washer over this. I'm gonna see if I can. So this detached, and I've soldered it together with the existing wire there. But I'm gonna try to put a plastic washer and then bend them over. So we'll see that next. Once I put the plastic washer, I can start bending these down a little flatter. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. All right, so these are the little nylon washers. So basically, let's see if we can squeeze it in there. And if it fits around that solder, great. I just want to sit flat. And we'll do the same for this side. Might have to move this out of the way. When it's all said and done, I might go ahead and respray with varnish again, so it's sealed. But before that, I will put some epoxy under and above this. And again, before doing all that, I will test continuity. All right, and that's the wire bent down nice and straight, right on top of the nylon washers. All right, so now I'm gonna bend these tabs down against that copper wire. All right, and this is what we currently have. That nub bent down against the copper wire. It's just bent down. It's not anything I could open up and squeeze onto it. Even as much as I heated it up, there's nothing melting inside that little bracket. So I can clamp it on there, that'd be ideal. But it's just pressed down against the copper wire, and we're gonna solder that connection there. All right, it took a while. I'm trying to figure out this solder and this heat touching the actual wires, the copper. Good thing, as it takes a lot of heat to melt. So I've tested it. This to the bottom, continuity. The top to that side, continuity. This to bare metal or to the top, no continuity. And the same with the bottom. Same with this to metal or the top, no continuity. Same test as before. There's the washers under. All right, soldered, and it's gonna be epoxied, so everything will be secured. So I'll epoxy under. You'll see a little space under. There you go. It's not touching the metal. I'll epoxy under, and I'll epoxy on top. So there you go with that security right there. All right, brand new slip ring. All right, up next is the JB Weld high heat type. So we're gonna mix that. It's a brand new one. We're gonna open it up, mix it, and spread a little under and on top. All right, and just like that, this is covered with that epoxy, that JB Weld heat resistant epoxy. Alright, so I made sure to go under the wire there and right on top, and there it is. Okay, so I made sure to test the resistance before that. So it read about 3 on the readings. I think between 2 and 5 is the reading you're supposed to get. Once they're welded together and you test it on the 2 leads here, it should be about between 2 and 5, and I got a 3. Alright, there we are. We're gonna let it cure. Alright, up next is the regulator. This one's from Taddy Tail. I didn't test this one unless it's in the vehicle. It wasn't in the vehicle, but I did have a new one. Just putting a fresh one in there. So the series is T730 or the CS144. For that Cadillac one I grabbed is what came in it was that T730. So that's what I'm replacing it with. 1 big tab, 3 little ones. As long as it's the same, 1 big tab, 3 little ones. Alright, it's a 12-volt system. Alright, but the other numbers are different. 15A, 18. And this is, let's see if we can make it out. 11M20. Alright, so what matters is the T730. Alright, so we're gonna go ahead and desolder this one. And we're gonna transfer it over to the new one. And then I think there's one more solder that we have to do. It's the brushes on this side. All right, it is off. We're gonna just transfer it over to the other side and add some solder. There it is right there. It's gonna be just like that. All right, one down. There it is. One more to go on this side. All right, now we have the brush assembly soldered on. There it is. Connections look great. Look at that. All right, so this assembly is set. This one's waiting to dry. I can put a heat gun on it. It's already getting ready to rain, so it's not good temperature for curing. But yep, we can just wait and leave it inside and let it cure on its own. But yeah, I'm gonna shoot some heat to it just to speed up the process. So we're gonna do this cover next. We're gonna put the new bearing in. So we'll heat this up into the oven and we'll put this into the freezer. That way we get a expansion, contraction, easy slip on. So we'll go ahead and do that. So the 6303 was the original number on that bearing I took off. 6303 2RSH is the new one. So the difference here is that 2. I looked it up. It should be the same bearing. We're just gonna look for some red Loctite and make sure it's nice and secure in there. After that, we'll put the clip on there. We had a change of plan here. As you can see, I have a rectifier in the case here. So the Loctite I want to use on here, I couldn't find. So I had one ordered, and through the magic of video, that'll come sooner than expected. In the meantime, I figured we can start assembly of the rear case. So the only thing not changed basically in this rebuild is the needle bearing. So I am gonna put a tiny smidge of grease at the end in there. But the first thing that goes in is the rectifier. So the original one is the 140. Nothing wrong with it. I am gonna harvest the battery connection here. So let's go ahead and put it on a new one I'm gonna put in. So the new one, it's an upgrade. It's supposed to be a premium 200 rectifier made by Transpo, and this is the box. DR5180PF is the part number. So I'm not converting it to a 200. You need to convert the rotor and the stator as well if you want to make it a 200. But this will make it stronger. From the 140 to the 200, it'll be a stronger alternator. Now, I'm just going to switch over the stud I just took off. And we're going to put it in this square piece right here. All right, there it is. Should fit nicely. And this should be tightened down with a 10. And that'll fit right through this round hole right here, as you can see right there. So that's where the placement will be. That's it. There it is. In fact, I think before even putting it in, when I first opened it, it came with a paper to insulate. So originally I thought maybe it was a mistake, figuring out that this is the negative area and this is a positive part of the rectifier. But if you do your research, and I did, this is practice some rebuilders do. I'm not sure if they did it from the factory. So you don't get arcing from the stator connections. Okay, so that's basically it. So we're gonna leave that in there. All right, and we're gonna put this away as a spare. So we have a new regulator as well. And I am reusing the brush holder here. I did a little boo-boo here, but I use the same epoxy, high heat epoxy that hardened and cured as I did on my rotor assembly. All right, and that's where this guy clips in. So basically I bought a new holder, the one with the round ones, thinking this is the wrong one. In fact, I'll show you guys. Let's find it. The new one and brushes is a standard product. There's some pieces coming out of this, but here it is. Here's the new assembly I had bought. All right, so doing a little research, seeing what other people did. This was supposed to be the correct one with the nubs for the 144. So if you see, as I try attempting to put it on here, it doesn't sit right. I don't know if you can see deep in there, but two of those circles, those nubs, they don't sit flat on the case. One sits on the case itself, the other one sits on this platform. All right, and this platform is made so that the brushes are squared. If you get this type, with this type of case and step, and you get the holder with the two round ones. They're not going to be squared. Right? In fact, the front one doesn't seem to touch because of the step. Let's see the difference. All right, now you get there's a space between here now. All right, and the one without the two circles, let's place it on there. In fact, that doesn't go next. If we're going by order, we have this piece where that green dot goes. That's one area down here and up here. These are the landing points for this guy right here. So let's go ahead and put them down. There we are. All right, everything will line up. What goes on this top one, if I want to hold this down right now, is the longest one that had like a gold color. So I'm gonna go ahead and find that guy right there. Here it is. The longer of the insulator bolts. And that'll go up here. So I'll start the process. All right, there it is. Now the soldered voltage regulator. All right, as we set this voltage regulator down, we want to put the pin down towards that little hole that you can see through, and the brush holder will sit on this platform, and the other foundation is right here on the bolt hole, so it's nicely squared. Okay, and this connection here from the voltage regulator that got soldered on in place goes onto this stud right here where the stator sits. All right, first thing we're going to do is we're going to put the next bolt that's insulated down here, and it's a silver one. Now the rest of the insulated bolts are the same size, so we're going to go ahead and insert that in there and start screwing it in. All right, we've got threads grabbed there. Now remember, the bottom part of this bridge rectifier, it's the insulated bolts that you're using. So one, two more here, and so the one here is not insulated. All right, so let's go ahead and find one that's not insulated. And it's not going to matter. There's two more bolts up here that are non-insulated bolts, so they don't have the plastic sleeve, and they're the same size, so you can't mess that up. All right, that grabbed. Next one, right up here, it's part of that bottom piece of the bridge rectifier. That's positive, so we need an insulated bolt, as well as the one right on top right there. Just going to get some good threads before we try to use our tools. All right, and right on top, the ones without the plastic sleeves. So that'll go in there, just like so. And one more right at the end here. This Z bracket looking thing is your capacitor. So these grab threads, this one's the funny one that I didn't really think grabbed too well. So I'm gonna manually try to feed it in. So these are 1/4 socket that you can use to send it in. So let's put this down. We're gonna get our 1/4 and let's see if we can just, there it is, bring it down, and we did. Okay, the rest grabbed good thread. So I'm gonna just save some time and bring this down on the holder, bring this down on the voltage regulator, and are we get to this? Yep. There it is. There it is. And this one. All right, and I'm gonna tighten them manually as well. Yeah, a lot of back and forth, but just a nice secure feeling there. Here's the one on the brush, the rectifier, the one on top. All right, I did my round, and what's left is the stator. All right, and they're gonna land right on these studs right there. And if you notice, in case I open this or someone else in the future, I marked it a 200 amp. So I can know what's in there. All right, we brought this down. They landed right on the studs. So we're gonna place our nuts right on there. A little tedious, but we're gonna get our threads in. This one. Two. And we're gonna do number 3. All right, so that should be 5/16, 11/30 seconds. 11/30 seconds. 5/16 are the bolts on the outside. 11/30 seconds are the 3 nuts for the stator. 1, 2, and 3. And I will follow manually. All right, there it is. All right, so I've added a little bit of wheel bearing grease on there. We're gonna add some to the nub here on the rotor, and just we really don't need much around since I've already put it on the actual needle bearing down there. But I'm gonna make sure we add some to the nose here. All right, here we go. My Loctite 640 is in. I'm gonna use a little bit around the bearing. So we're gonna put this in the oven, this in the freezer for a little bit, and hopefully just flip it in. This is the 640, which is right here, rated at 350 degrees. The one right before is 620. It's rated at a higher temperature, 450. So we could have gone with this one. but hopefully ours doesn't get to 350, right, at the alternator. High strength for bearings, that's what we're doing. Bushings, anchoring studs, valve guides, okay? And the other one says for high strength and or high temperature applications, locks and seals, wheel bearings, slip fit shafts. So we could have gone with either the 620 or the 640, but we're here with the red container, green liquid 640 right here. All right, this is back from the freezer. We gave this guy a quick cleaning. Actually applied it and then decided that I forgot to clean it. So we're gonna put this all the way around. In fact, let's grab it from the middle. All right, just this one little stripe all the way around. All right, and back down. And we're gonna do the same for the case. All right, after I parsed them in there, I got some little hardening action. I had to scrape it off, so we're just going ahead and doing it on the one side. Okay, so I'm gonna try this again. A little bit slipped off. That's what we're going with, and we're just gonna place it right on top, and hopefully it just slips right in. All right, we're back at our station here. We're just gonna place it nice and flat right there. All right, what we need is, you just get a piece of wood. And we're just gonna do a nice tap right on there. All right, that's it right there, still hot. There it is. Now the inside, the middle is hot as well. It looks like it's nice and flush. All right, we're just gonna double check with the light. I'm a little in a dark area here, so we're gonna go into the light and make sure it's nice and flush. All right, our bearing's in place. All we have to do is put our spacer. There's a spacer in between the rotor and this. Remember, this is the front part, and then there's a spacer that sits here. And I believe this is a spacer, but we're gonna double check. One is slightly bigger than the other, girthier. All right, so it seems the skinnier spacer goes on the rotor side. And then our case. All right, one thing we forgot is the clip right there. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and reinsert that on there. So it was just a matter of kind of splitting those legs open. Wait a second. And just pressing those clips on there. It should fall into place. That's it. So another form of safety for that bearing. And there it is. All right, before assembling, I do have to note I am reclocking this case. This is from a Cadillac, again, once again, 96 Cadillac DeVille. And for my application, small block Chevy 350. I did make a mark right there, okay, before when everything was gutted out. I put it together so that I can have it how I want it. So we're just gonna look for the mark. There it is right there. We're just gonna line them up and bolt it all together. And I'll be dropping the rotor in place instead of installed on the case there. So there she is. Rotation, spacer, align the case. There she is right there. There's the line I wanted. All right, that should be it. It's not final until you take this pin off. So we're not committed. But let's go ahead and mock this up. So what you have to think about is on the small block Chevy 350, let's see, yep. This is a big bolt on the bottom. So I do want my pigtail facing that way and my battery wire. So that is making sense. So I'm gonna put the long bolts on and tighten them down. Much better. And one more. There you go. And lastly but not least, we're going to release the brushes by pulling this pin right here. We heard the clicking. They are released, and there we have it. All that's left is this spacer here. All right, and the final stage here is the cooling fan. So it seems to be in good condition. Just cleaned it up. We're gonna go ahead and place it down. Put our pulley down. And we're using a 24 to screw it in place. Let's go ahead and use our impact gun. All we have to do is hold our pulley. Make sure it's the right rotation. All right. And go for it. That should do it. All right, to recap, this is an alternator I grabbed off of a yard from a 96 Cadillac DeVille. I'm glad I opened her up because she needed a full refresh. One of the things replaced on here that were really worn out were the slip rings. So we went ahead and put in some new slip rings. The front bearing on the case was replaced. The rear case has a needle bearing as well, but that was left in place, just re-greased. One of the upgrades on here was the bridge rectifier, the 140 amp rectifier that comes with this alternator. Was just put aside. It tested fine, but it's put aside as a spare. What's on here now is a 200 amp rectifier. Now remember, this does not make this a 200 amp alternator, but it just makes it more durable, stronger. So that is in place, and a new voltage regulator as well as new brushes are in place. Other than that, we reclocked it to fit my small block Chevy 350 application. That way I can have the wires coming out the side. And there you go. New CS144, at least for me, a refreshed alternator. If you like this video, go ahead and hit a like, comment, and please subscribe so you can catch me on the next one as I install this on my small block Chevy 350 and make the necessary modifications to fit this bigger case. See you on the next one.